fueling, and I'm going to record a video series of me tuning this MT10 start to finish on the dyno. Once we finish tuning the MT10, we won't stop there. We'll try out different modifications such as different exhausts, baffle in, baffle out, with the cap, without the cap, different air filters, fuel types, and we'll see what modifications work and what don't. So this particular bike has, it's been decatted and has an aftermarket air filler in it. That's the only modifications that's done to this bike, which is probably, I don't know, 80% of all MT10s out there. So I'll quickly show you what it has. So it just has the AR link pipe and the AR tail can. It has a BMC air filter, and that's pretty much it. So as I say, it should fit most people's bikes. So one thing we'll do before we start tuning the AFR is we need to block off the pair air. The pair air is essentially just a rubber hose that goes from the air box into the top of the cylinder head. Its function is for emissions. It's to inject fresh air into the exhaust that helps ignite the unburnt fuel. So when you do the overrun, backing off the throttle, and you get the pops and bangs, that's aided by that fresh air injected into the exhaust, gives you that popping and banging noise. If you block off that pair air, the popping and bang will almost stop. The reason we need to block that off whilst tuning is if we don't, that fresh air will go into the exhaust and it'll contaminate the reading that I need to take to see what level the air fuel ratio is at. So we'll block this off. Luckily it's really easy to access on the MT10. I can access it from outside. It's just a simple rubber hose that we have to clamp. And that's it blocked off. I'll try and show you it, but I don't know if you'll be able to see or not. Might be quite difficult to see, but it's a hose pipe up there. The next thing is, I will remove this bung, and this is where we'll install our O2 sensor. Okay, so O2 sensor is installed. The next thing we need now is an RPM pickup, so that we know the RPMs, which is fairly simple on the MT10 again. ECU, and it's just this orange wire here. So we just install the clamp over the orange wire, and I just set it back in there, keep everything away. So pair air is blocked, O2 sensor in, RPM feed. That's me pretty much ready to go. So the next part I will do some screen sharing software, and I'll just go about how I do the fuel maps.
Without getting too technical, the first thing we're going to tune on the bike is the air fuel ratio. So why does the bike come from the factory and we still need to tune the air fuel ratio? Why does it not come out ready to go, maximum power, exactly what we want? Well, the reason is for the manufacturer to be able to sell bikes, they need to comply to strict emission guidelines. So their priority is not maximum power or maximum fuel efficiency. What they need to do is get the poisonous gases to as low as they possibly can. So if you look at this bottom graph, this is with the catalytic converter. As you can see, these poisonous gases, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, the lowest value is right about here, and the air fuel ratio for that is 14.71, otherwise known as stoichiometric. So this side of the chart is rich, where we have all these hydrocarbons, etc., and this side is lean. Above is just so that you can see what it looks like when you remove the catalytic converter, all these poisonous gases. So the manufacturers are aiming for around 14.71 because this is where they have the best chances of reducing the emissions. If I show you another chart, which is here. So this chart, again, this black line here is 14.71. It's also called lambda 1. This side of the chart on the left is a rich mixture and the chart on the right is a lean mixture. So you can see the power curve here as the bike is rich and you start to remove some fuel. This is where you're hitting maximum power, and eventually when you've taken too much fuel away, the power drops. So on this particular graph, it is 12.61 for maximum power. That's not always the case. I like to try and check the bike to see what it likes as maximum power, but in this particular graph, they're recommending 12.61. On the other side, they're seeing that the best fuel economy is down here at 15.4 to 1. So as you can see, the manufacturers are aiming for this level here. They're not interested in the maximum power up here, and they're not really interested in the best fuel economy, which is here. So they're aiming for this value here. So what we need to do is we are going to aim more for this value here on maximum power, but I'll show you that in the cruise areas of the map, i.e. when you're not full throttle and you're just cruising, we can still try and aim for the best fuel economy on those maps as well, which is what I'll show you just now. This next chart is to illustrate the air-fuel ratio of a standard MT10 as it comes out the factory. So this dotted line here is air-fuel ratio 13.2 to 1, and we can see above this line then the mixture is lean, below this line the mixture is rich. So you can see this MT10 is running lean, and then it goes rich for a bit and then back up to lean again. So what we want to try and do to correct the air-fuel ratio is add more fuel in this area to bring it down to this line, and in this area I want to remove some fuel to bring it up to this line. And you'll probably ask, well, why do they make it rich here? Well, one of the other Euro 4 regulations is a drive-by sound test. So what they'll do is drive the bike past a decibel meter at roughly this RPM, and it's got to pass a certain sound volume requirements. So another way the manufacturers can assist to try and reduce that volume is by making the mixture rich, the air-fuel ratio mixture. A rich mixture will quieten down the exhaust note and therefore help them to try and pass the drive-by sound test. So all in all, the bike's lean, then rich, then lean, and it just doesn't make for a great ride for us. Okay, we'll just do the first run so we can see where the bike's at before we continue further tuning. So that run there was 147 horsepower, 104 newton meters of torque. As predicted, pretty poor fueling. same kind of profile. So there are two fuel maps that we can tune. One is the IAP map, inlet absolute pressure, and the other is the TPS map. Inlet absolute pressure is normally referred to as the speed density map, and the TPS map is the alpha N map. So what you'll see here is values being recorded from the air fuel sensor. You can see them lighting up in red there as the bike scrolls across those particular cells. So red is lean, it's going to be above 13.2%, and if you see any blue, that's essentially going to be rich. So all we have to do is collect as much data as we can for all these cells, and then the software has an algorithm in it that will create a new fuel map, and with that new fuel map we just flash that onto the ECU and we just rinse and repeat this process. For this IAP map, I normally do it about 3 times just to hone in and get the values spot on. So I'll fast forward me collecting the data on all of these cells, and then we'll flash it, and then we'll come back and redo it again to see the difference. Okay, that's us collected enough data for now on this pass. All we need to do now is just apply the auto tune. That will create the amendments to the current map, and we'll flash that back onto the ECU and then just rinse and repeat the process again. Okay, so same as before, this is the second pass. I will just fast forward it until the end and we can see if we're any closer after this pass. And that's that pass done. It's looking a little better. So we'll just use the auto tune function to create us a new map, and this new map will flash that back onto the ECU and we'll try it again. Okay, so this is the third pass, but actually I think I'm quite happy with this just now. I can revisit this map after I've done the TPS maps, but for now, yep, this looks fine for now. I'll move on to the next map. Before I start tuning the TPS maps, I like to adjust the default drive-by-wire map, which is this. I like to make it a linear map just temporarily. It's just easier to tune, so I like it more like this, just for tuning, and then I'll change it back later. I'll just make sure that every gear uses this map, so I'll just change all of these values to 13 so that it uses the map that I've just created. Good, and I'll just check it. So I'll check the gears. Yep, so every gear uses the same map, just on sports mode. The other modes are the same for now. That's the default drive-by-wire map, so I'll stick with this one just now. For the first few passes of the TPS map, I also like to flatten out the acceleration enrichment, This is just additional fuel that's added to the fuel table with harsh acceleration. So I don't want this additional fuel to mess with my fuel tables just now. So I'll just set all the values to 0 and then I'll tune the acceleration enrichment map later. So that's all I need to do, flatten it out for those gears. Yep, so that's me ready to do the TPS map. So tuning the TPS map is very similar to the IAP map. It's very simple. It's just a case of capturing data in all the cells. So as you can see, the cells are populating, and that's just the current air fuel ratio in that particular cell. So you can see it's sitting about 13.45 etc. for that particular cell. The left hand side is the RPM. Up the top axis is just the throttle opening position. So I just need to go across from left to right, collecting as much data as I can. And once all the data is collected, again we use the auto tune feature. That just creates a new map. We'll then flash that back onto the ECU and we'll just rinse and repeat that process again. So to save time, I'll just quickly fast forward as I collect all this data. Okay, so that's the data collected. We'll just do the usual, apply the auto tune, and we'll flash that back to the ECU, see how we go from here. So to spare you the pain of watching me go through the TPS map several times, I've gone ahead and done it, and we'll just give it a quick run just now so I can show you where we're at so far. So we're at 153 horsepower, 109.5 newton meters of torque. The fueling looks okay for now, so we'll move on to the next step.
The last thing I'll do before we finish off this video is acceleration enrichment. Essentially, acceleration enrichment is just additional fuel that's added when you apply throttle quickly. The reason you need that extra fuel, it's something called pooling or wet walling. How could I explain it? It's a really crude demonstration, but imagine this is the injector spraying fuel, and this is the side of the inlet wall. So what essentially happens is this inlet wall is going to be dry. All the fuel is going to be evaporated off. It's probably going to be warm. The air's rushing past. So when that injector first sprays, there's no fuel coming into the cylinder. None at all. Spray again, still nothing. Spray again, now we have drips. Now every spray after that, you'll have a drip. That's basically now puddled or wet walled. So essentially, what happens is if you're just riding at a constant throttle, it's just going to be sitting, every injection is going to have the same amount of fuel coming in. But if you give harsh acceleration, you've got a sudden rush of air that's gone through the inlet, it's going to dry all this off, and that normal injection of fuel is going to do nothing. So you get the acceleration enrichment that essentially gives that bit extra fuel to start the puddle going again. So that's acceleration enrichment. And how I look for it on the dyno is, I'll do another screen share. I just have the AFR on like a chart, and essentially I'll just kind of, at the particular RPM range that I want to check, I'll just give it quick acceleration, and if the chart spikes up, it's rich. If it spikes down, it's lean. So if it goes up, there's too much fuel. If it goes down, there's not enough. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick example. I'll deliberately add a little bit too much acceleration enrichment. So when I snap the throttle, it'll go rich. So I'll do that deliberately just so as you can see it. Then I'll work away on it without boring you. I'll just work away on it and get it right. Then I'll do another example where I snap the throttle on and we should stay at the same air-fuel ratio. So I'll do that now.
Okay, so I'm going to hold the RPM about 4,500 RPM, then I'm going to snap it. There you go, there is the rich part. So that's too much acceleration enrichment, which is just adding too much fuel when you snap the throttle. So I will now go and correct that, and I'll do another snap throttle test, and then we can see the difference. And same again, and we'll just bring up the RPM and then just snap the throttle again. Yep, that's much better, much better.
Okay, I think that'll do us for the first video. Thanks for watching. I hope you picked up some bits of information that was handy. The next time, I think we've just got the ignition maps and the drive-by-wire throttle maps. What I'll also do is I'll go through all the different various things in the software and the ECU that we can normally switch off. Things like fan temperatures, RPM limits, speed limits, etc, etc. I'll just quickly go through the software and show you what's there. So I think on the next video we'll have finished tuning the bike, we'll see what the final numbers are, and that will set us up ready to try out different modifications. I think we'll do some easy ones first, baffle in, baffle out. What I also want to do is we'll take an accurate pressure of the tyre at normal working temperature. So for example 36 psi, we'll run it up, we'll get some temperature in it, and then we'll measure that temperature again. I think it increases by 4, 5, sometimes 6 psi when you start to get some temperature built up into it. Then what we'll do is we will completely drain the tyre. There's a quick fit just down the road from here, and we'll fill it up with nitrogen, and we'll do exactly the same again. We'll take the temperature at just an ambient temperature, take the PSI, sorry. We'll run it up, get the temperature, and we'll see what the PSI difference is. And to be honest, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it'll be 1 PSI, 2 PSI, 3 PSI. I do know that it won't be as bad as air, but I think if we're going to be doing lots of modifications, etc., I think it's probably quite important that we have quite a stable tyre pressure. Therefore, that's not going to influence the kind of readings that we're going to get for the different modifications. So I might do that in with the next video, or the next video will just be throttle maps and ignition maps. That might be enough, and then I'll leave the tyre pressure ones with the nitrogen filled tyre maybe to the next one. So yeah, subscribe and watch the next video. Cheers, bye.